Joining me now is Regina Williams-Preston. She is running for mayor of South Bend, Indiana. All of a sudden, that is a very relevant mayoral seat in the country, obviously currently occupied by Pete Buttigieg. Regina, welcome to the Young Turks.
Well, thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, great to have you on. So first of all, let's just be clear, Pete Buttigieg, since he's running for president, is not running for re-election, so you're not running against him.
That is correct.
Okay, yes. And how many folks are in that seat? I mean, how many folks are in that race, I should say?
Yeah, there's actually 10 of us, including one Republican candidate. And I tell you, it has been certainly something that to see what's happening. We are definitely up against big money in this campaign. We have Pete's pick, who happens to be his best friend from high school and used to actually be his chief of staff. And also the former just stepped down from being the Democratic Party chair in St. Joe County. He stepped down to run for mayor. So we're really running against some big money establishment candidates. And I think Pete's pick has already raised like $245,000 for this mayoral race.
Wow.
And the St. Joe Dems guy has somewhere around $140,000. So that's really one of the biggest challenges I think we're up against, like being the people's candidate, making sure that we have what we need in order to get the word out, to spread the word about what we need to do to make sure that the working people of South Bend are taken care of.
Yeah, so now because Mayor Pete's running for president, we of course know a lot about his tenure that we might not have otherwise known. He has outraised people all throughout his career in terms of political donations. And so he's had that huge advantage throughout. It doesn't mean he didn't do a good job, but he did. That did help him win his races, obviously, and so now his chief of staff has that advantage going for him. You do seem to have some momentum and people power because Shane Inez, one of the other candidates, dropped out, and she endorsed you. Is that right?
Yes, he actually did.
He did. Oh, sorry. Yes.
He filed to run. He was only 19 years old, so it's really a testament to the excitement that's building in South Bend and the engagement that we have to have young folks stepping up and saying they're ready to take the mantle and make a difference in local government. It's so important.
So now let's talk about the current state of South Bend, because we hear in the national media that it's a glowing success. In fact, NBC News yesterday had a report, which I think they had a picture of you at. I'm not sure they ever quoted you, but they had a picture of you in it. And it talked about how Mayor Pete was this amazing mayor, and things are going so well. And whatever mistakes he made, he actually learned from, and it was a moment of redemption, and he made him even better and better in connecting with people. But I see that 54% of the residents fall below the United Way's ALICE threshold. Do you know what that is, and what does that mean?
Yeah, actually, the ALICE report stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. And actually, a lot of the work that I've done, I mean, part of the reason that I'm a contender at this point is that I've been doing this work in neighborhoods and in schools. You know, I'm a teacher, been teaching in public schools for 20 years, advocating for issues exactly like this for the working people. And so one of the organizations I'm with, the Community Forum for Economic Justice, is really all about making sure we're paying attention to these issues. The ALICE report by the United Way really sets out the standard, and it says, okay, these are the folks who are actually working, but they still can't make ends meet on a standard household budget in Indiana. So 54%. So all of the wonderful growth and investment that we're seeing in South Bend, it's fantastic. We're all genuinely excited about it. But the truth is, when we look at numbers like that, we have to realize that there's only a very small group of people really benefiting from that investment. And so that's where we need to go next as the city of South Bend. When over half of your population is struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, we have to start making sure that we're opening up opportunity to the people, the working people of South Bend.
So Regina has been the SBCSC Teacher of the Year. She's in Special Honors Group in 2010. And in 2014, she won the MLK Rosa Parks Lifetime Achievement Award. So she's been working in that community for a long time and recognized as such. So given all that, Regina, what's your take on Mayor Pete's tenure so far in regards to the African-American community in South Bend?
Well, I think one of the most important accomplishments that I've made is being elected as a South Bend Common Council 4 years ago. So I'm rounding out my first term. So I've had a front row seat to what's been going on in the administration right now. And in fact, with the help of local community activists and residents, really have been driving this issue of equity and inclusion, making sure that the administration is paying attention to everybody. And when it comes to the issues around specifically the Black community, one of the things we did, well, everybody's able to say, okay, well, we know that people of color maybe aren't doing quite as well, but there really was some resistance to getting real numbers on that. And like as an educator, I know that it's important if you're going to have some kind of intervention, you have to have a baseline, you have to understand where you are. So one of the first things we were able to do is push the administration to actually contract with Prosperity Now and get a report on the racial wealth divide. And one of the most startling statistics, even for me when I looked at it, was that African Americans in South Bend live in poverty at twice the rate of African Americans all over the country. And so, you have to sit with that for a minute and realize that, wow, like South Bend, Indiana is one of the worst places for African Americans to live. And so this is really important for us to understand, to not be scared of those numbers, but embrace it and say, we've got to do something about it. There's a critical issue here. And I think part of the problem is we've kind of been hesitant to address these issues of race for so long that even in the African American community, we've really become complacent. I read some news media where they were asking some of the local leaders, African American leaders, about, well, what has Pete done for the Black community? And the main thing they could come up with was, well, he named a street after Dr. King, and it just tells you the bar is so low for our elected officials here in South Bend, and we really have to change that. And
So sorry. So now there's also one more specific issue regarding Pete Buttigieg's reign in South Bend that is a concern of some African Americans in your city, and so that's the police tapes. Yes. So there are tapes that we know have calls from cops in them that are racist in nature. Everybody knows that. Mayor Pete acknowledges that. Everybody acknowledges that. And one of the things that TYT recently uncovered is we found the document of the woman who was fired for uncovering the tapes, Karen DePape. And she, in the document of her settlement, they explained that, well, we don't want to endanger prosecutions. That's why we don't want the tapes to come out. Do you think that's a legitimate reason for the tapes to come out, or maybe the reverse?
Well, I have to admit that back in 2013, when all this was kind of going down, I wasn't engaged as I was at this time. But I think one of the really important things, and this is why I was saying, I read the article that you guys did. I want to really compliment you because part of the issue around getting at what's happening with the tapes is because I think our local media is constrained in how they cover certain things. So I actually learned quite a bit in terms of the investigations that you did, because, here, and that's why I'm really appreciative of the national media, I have to say, because really the spotlight on South Bend has given us the opportunity to really deepen our understanding of issues. The local media, when it comes to race, is very, has very surface coverage, very limited in their ability to understand these issues. I mean, they talk about things as if it's conspiracy theory, as if gentrification isn't real, as if the school to prison pipeline doesn't exist. So it's been really great, and I want to thank you all for really deepening our own understanding within this community and elevating the conversation. And so as it relates to the tapes, from everything that we're hearing is that really it's not illegal. It wasn't an illegal recording, and we're looking forward to actually being able to hear when the judge makes the final decision that we can actually hear these tapes. There will absolutely be a full hearing. And I think the real issue is, anything that's on the tape, if what's on there is what we believe is on there, it's probably not something that we didn't know or didn't have some suspicion was happening. The real question is, how are we going to prepare ourselves to have that conversation? Because it's potentially very explosive, divisive, but there's a way we have to begin to have a conversation about these issues in this town that we can actually hear those tapes and move through this issue where we come out stronger on the other side.
So Regina, if you were the mayor at the time, and now remember when the tapes happened and the controversy happened, I want the audience to understand that Pete Buttigieg was not the mayor. But when the tapes were discovered as to what to do with the tapes, then Buttigieg was the mayor. And he's the one that not only demotes Boykins, who's the African-American police chief, but he fires Karen DePape, who heard the tapes. And to me, that's particularly egregious. Would you have fired her in that situation? And would you have tried to hear what's in the tapes and maybe lawyered up to see if you could find a way to hear those tapes?
Well, I think ultimately it's really easy to kind of do that Monday quarterbacking, right? To go back and say, what would I have done? Could I have done? Of course, on this side of it, I believe I would have certainly handled it differently. But I think that also has to do with my style of leadership. You know, it's about getting all the information, all the facts, and being very transparent. So, I had a lot of questions about, why decisions were made to pay off the officers who were on the tape, to pay off the woman who actually heard the tapes for the first time, to demote, to fire, and then ultimately demote the chief. So there are a lot of things that come to mind in terms of the question of what happened and what should have happened. But I think the most important thing is, what are we going to do now moving forward? How are we going to repair that relationship with the African-American community? How are we going to create and build trust within the police department? And so I can say that as mayor, I will make that a cornerstone of my administration to look at public safety in a new way. Public safety is over 60% of our budget. Of course, that's police and fire. But what we know is that when we're dealing with police, by that time we're calling the police, there's a problem already happened. And so we have to build into our budget, put our money where our values are, and make sure that we're investing in proactive strategies. Community policing is really important. We're doing some of that, but we have to start moving to things like restorative justice, restorative practices, and making sure that we're hiring, diversifying our police force, all of those common sense strategies that have been laid out already in the 21st Century Policing document released back when Obama was president. So these are things that we need to do moving forward.
Regina, if there are police officers that are saying racist things about the citizens in South Bend, and you hear the tapes, will you fire them?
We have to, I'm not sure which ones are still actually employed and which ones are going, but we will actually have to make sure that we're addressing those issues. There will be an investigation. One of the first things I'll be looking at is a Citizens Review Board, which is absolutely necessary. It's been called for by this community for years. And so I think that that's a very tangible step that we need to take to bring the community into this process to make sure that everybody has equal protection under the law.
But one more issue that TYT Investigates uncovered. There was a city attorney who was also fired by Mayor Pete Buttigieg. And it's because she did not object as the Board of Public Safety voted to refer a case to the Indiana State Police. They referred that case because the white police chief put in by Mayor Buttigieg did not back up a black police officer in one particular instance.
Right.
And are you concerned that firing was part of a cover-up, or why the city attorney was fired at all in that situation? Because it would seem like that is a situation that should be referred to Indiana State Police for investigation.
Absolutely, I think it should, because I believe in full transparency. And in order to build that trust with the community, we have to know that we have an objective body that's actually reviewing various different issues. But again, in terms of whether it was correct to fire that particular person or not, I mean, there could be all kinds of different circumstances. I really just don't know at this point. But certainly when we're bringing the community into the process, when we have a legacy of transparency, that's really about what's going to make the difference.
Okay, everybody, I want to give the website, as we always do with candidates, Regina Williams-Preston for mayor.com. And then obviously you can see the links for volunteering and donating. And those links will be down below in the description box if you're watching this later on any of our platforms, including YouTube and Facebook. So it's an easy click away. And the primary is May 7th. So that's obviously very important and very soon. Regina, thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks. Appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate your time. Appreciate being here. Thank you.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below. Then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.